Marvel might be in a stickler here. Now, as the quoting pie has said, it doesn't really mean that this is a ongoing thing, like this is going to be a constant thing that will be happening. But I am seeing a lot of trends on a lot of the movies being terrible. And as I said, it takes a while for movies such as this to really see some pull or some weight. But I think I am seeing some actual pretty huge drops here and very negative in the sense. So we're going to go over it and see what's going on with Ant-Man and other issues with these movies, because I don't think Marvel is in a good spot here. I think they're actually starting to collapse a little bit, and there's some concerns. So let's go over it. So it says, Fun Film Updates, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania made $32.2 million in its second weekend at the domestic box office, marking a 69% decline from its debut. This marks the biggest week-to-week drop in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, I have a lot of movies that are, essentially either not doing well or not on the up and up. Of course, I think that there's a few like what is that movie? Wow, I can't even think of it because it's been out of my sight for so long. I'll find it eventually. So what we have here is the Ant-Man and the Wasp 2018 box office. So $722 million was this first release, right? So this is the first Ant-Man and the Wasp. This is the 2018 release right here. And then you had Ant-Man, which is right here, which is 519. So not the biggest bang for the buck, right? See how much of the box office they made. It's earning as 120 to 122 million. So it really depends, and you have to really think too. As by the way, guys, is that like what was the actual the actual budget here, right? So their box office made 627 million, as it says here, or 722, not 627. So and then we will go with here with the box office. You just put this in here for an actual budget, and then you kind of see to where they have. So they spent 130 to 195 million on the budget, and the box office made quite a bit of money. So they made quite a few gains from this, right? That's how much they spent on it. So you have this with this here. You have Ant-Man and Quantumania here, which is only in the second week. I get it, but there's an issue. It's like, as we said here, it's on a decline, and if it's on a decline, that's not good for Marvel, because what this means is that they made 200 million, and they made essentially pretty much 400 million less than the previous movie, right? So that's not good. And as I said here, we go back, we have Ant-Man, and they made 519 million there, which was 100 million less than their second movie, which that's usually a good thing, right? Your first movie makes 519, and then your second makes a bit more, so that's good, right? But we have this here. We have this as well. We have Black Panther box office 1.3 billion. All right, so that made a lot of money, and I probably don't even have to look at the actual budget that they spent on this, because it most likely made them. It most likely made a huge surplus. Now we have this with the Black Panther 2 box office, which is the Wakanda Forever, and this made significantly less money. In a great margin. So remember, guys, this is from 1.3 billion, and this was to 815.1 million, right? So that cut down the amount significantly. And then if we go to, let's see here, the budget, which I'm pretty sure that they made money, right? So yeah, they spent 250 million, which was a lot, but they still made a budget. They still made a great surplus. So, I don't know if they're actually counting as well, kind of like the, how much it would be. I don't know if they're actually counting the advertisements or stuff like that equates to the 250 million. But if it is due to the fact that they, not counting the advertisements, and that's a problem, that means it's even worse. If they are counting the advertisements, it's less. So, obviously. But that's not really a good trend. Now we have this with Thor 2011. This made 450 million, rounded out, of course. And then you have Thor Ragnarok, which made 854 million. Okay, so they're making great strides in of increase of their money flow, right? So they made 400 more than their predecessor. So that's good. But now we have this. Now this is not as a big decline, obviously, from the movies that they would have, right? So it's not big, but it's still 100 million loss. And if you're seeing 100 million a loss, then this is not good in general. So you have this matters beyond just venture because it's a reminder that despite mixed reviews and buzz, Lauren Love of Thunder was very much a very big hit. Yeah, I would say so as well. But it doesn't matter because you're still losing 100 million less. And if you're gonna continue doing this, I don't see how this is gonna not affect Marvel. You have this with Mobius as well, where Morbius to weigh 165.5 million USD, right? And we have to see what they in budget. So their gross they made around that, right? So let's see the actual budget here. I guess we put in both and you see. So their budget was 75.83 million. So they made a bit of a surplus here, right? So but it's not a lot. They almost pretty much lost. The original release earned 160 million worldwide, including just 64 billion domestic on a 75 million budget. It then returned to theaters with the lowest per theater average in the top 20. Morbius is a rare movie that essentially bombed twice at the domestic box office. So yeah, it did horrible 2 times. They even re-released it to make sure it actually got money, and it still didn't do well. So this had 2 tries, 2 chances, and it still did this. So I don't think that's really good. So we'll go with this later in a bit. So we have this with Venom 1, which they earned 56 million. All right, so they probably spent 300 million, give or take, for the movie, and they made a surplus. Well, we had Venom 2, and they made 300 million less. So that's not good. And then you go with the actual budget here, and then they spent 110 million. So they still made a surplus, but it's still a pretty massive drop compared to what they made previously. Then you have The Mutants, which this had a theatrical release, which has made 29.2 million, and this is for an X-Men movie, by the way. This is an X-Men movie, so they did not do well. And then our Dark Phoenix made 254 million. So that's a problem, and then we're going to put in the budget, and they spent 200 million. This is what you would consider a flop, in my opinion. You only made a surplus of 52 million, and that's about it. That's not really a plus in my book. That's a negative. So what we have here is that we have after Ant-Man 3's second weekend box office collapse, should Marvel get concerned? Goes on to hear that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania took a sizable hit in his sophomore outlining at the box office. Ticket sales for the third movie starring Paul Rudd's subatomic hero were down 69% from his 105 million debut, resulting in the biggest second weekend drop in the franchise's history. That fails as inspired is plenty of debate among analysts and experts. Is the film's performance a blip or inflection point in Hollywood's biggest property? The answer is likely somewhere in between, according to senior ComScore analyst Paul DeGabranian? What? A long, weird ass name. Anyways, as second weekend drops go, anything in the 70% realm is pretty significant, says Paul. But movies that open with over 100 million are generally front loaded. In some cases, the bigger they are, the harder they fall comes into play. In other words, a second weekend turnout of 32 million is not exactly encouraging this early into its theatrical run. But let's see where ticket sales end up by the time Quantumania leaves the big screen. Ant-Man 3 certainly had a big start, scoring the first 100 million debut of the year and landing by the far biggest opening weekend in the sized Marvel trilogy, and that's despite getting saddled with some of the worst reviews and audience scores in the entire MCU. I don't think it's a big deal, says Jeff Bock, an analyst with Exhibitor Relations. It had the biggest opening of the series by far, which makes up for any drops. Plus, there's precedent. It's not unusual for major tentpoles to earn the bulk of their return the first weekend of release. Marvel movies have become increasingly front-loaded because audiences want to see them quickly to avoid spoilers, and the $200 million budgeted Quantumania, which is the 31 installment and kicks off the MCU's Phase 5 slate, is no exception. I'll also point out as well, I'm also the same person that, like, I really try to watch movies that are really on the get that I'm really interested in, because you always have spoilers or assholes that are coming about that want to ruin the movie for you, and then it's a huge problem in anime, because in anime you have people that is a bigger thing on YouTube, to where there's more spoilers and issues like that, especially that you're into it, and it just ruins the entire movie for you. So watching it on day one is pretty a big thing, at least for me, because I know that spoilers have to happen. Additionally, theater owners who set the prices for movie tickets have started to charge more for blockbuster movies during opening weekend. As a result, second weekend drops in attendance compared to ticket sales aren't necessarily as large as they appear, according to studio sources. Still, it didn't help that Ant-Man 3 was targeting a similar audience of younger males as Universal's new horror comedy Cocaine Bear, which beat expectations with $23 million over the weekend. Yeah, so Cocaine Bear actually outperformed Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's actually really sad, because I think Cocaine Bear is a comedy / B-rated movie that's not supposed to be really good, and it outperformed expectations. So another thing as well that we have to think is that, since we're in inflation, right, which the Biden administration wants to ignore entirely, and more movies are costing more, etc., to go to, it's also another thing as well that these box office numbers are probably worse than what we imagined. Now, not obviously not for the movies that happened before all of this stuff in Biden took place, obviously, but as of maybe last year and then this year, it's a problem, because as inflation rises and as the box offices, obviously are going to increase in number just because of the mere fact that, things cost more, it's probably worse, because everything costs more, but the mere fact that it costs more doesn't mean it's doing well. So, like, say for instance, $850 million means a lot more 2-3 years ago than it means now, because as you pay more, it's just going to be an issue. It's just going to have as you pay more, it's going to make that number obviously be bigger. As you have to pay less, but it still reaches that number, it's a bigger deal. So yeah, I don't see how this is going to go well. It feels more like than a heated box office competition and harsh holiday comparisons. There's concern that the latest Ant-Man extends a potentially worrying trend for the Marvel. Though Quantumania endured the steepest fall, it's not the only recent MCU movie to witness a substantial drop in its second weekend. Pandemic-era entries including Black Widow, Thor, Love and Thunder, Spider-Man No Way Home, and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse Madness suffer similar declines. Yet those movies, with the exception of Black Widow, which was released day and date on Disney Plus, earned at least $760 million and as much as $905 million by the end of their theatrical runs. There's an argument that Marvel hasn't been appalling beyond its target audience, but the target audience is sure dependable. No other franchise, dozens of films in, has managed to come close to that consistency. The loyal fans are going to show up no matter what, Robin says. The increasing front-loaded nature and an occasionally divisive reception of some of their recent films not necessarily be working to the brand overall as long as the core fan base remains. For that reason, analysts prefer to measure the film's success by its lifetime total. And the third Ant-Man installment is expected to improve upon its predecessors. So far, Quantumania has grossed $167 million in North America and $364 globally after just 2 weeks in theaters, needing proof that Marvel is operating on another level than its rivals. By next weekend, Quantumania will overtake the lifetime tally of Dwayne Johnson's DC comic installment Black Adam, which left theaters with $392 million. Yeah, which I also didn't show, that didn't do well either. So here's what we have, is that we have a huge issue. And I think some of these movies are even releasing in China, which has a huge demographic of actually boosting sales. By comparison, the first standalone adventure of 2015's Ant-Man opened to $57 million in North America and tapped out with $880 million domestically and $519 million globally. The 2018 Ant-Man and the Wasp opened to $60 million in North America and ended up grossing $216 million domestically and $622 million globally. Based on its debut, Quantumania could end up with roughly $240 million domestically. Sources estimate, though they say it's too soon to predict the global total. Yeah, so I don't know what's going to happen with Marvel, but I don't think things are going to go super well here. I think everything's in a negative light. I think things are probably gonna get worse here, and I'm all here for it. I don't think Disney is gonna be doing well, and Disney also has been has been losing billions along with other media outlets. So I don't see where anything's on the up and up with Marvel or with Disney. I guess it's time will tell. But it doesn't seem good. Alright guys, that's it for the video. Like, subscribe, share. As always, take care.